Well, the union has evolved as the business has evolved, and the business has evolved around the players' needs and their interests. So even over the last 15 years, when the NFL Players Association did not have as big of a marketing and licensing operation as we do today, we had to really look at different ways to maximize our leverage in order to achieve the gains that we had to do at the bargaining table. So I think over time, even though we're more than 65 years old now, we've had to take a look every 3 to 5 years at ways to refresh our business model, look at the way the union engages with players. And despite the fact that we have, over the last 2 collective bargaining agreements, long-term deals, the power that we have been able to build has come from what we've done in the spaces between those collective bargaining agreements. Well, we're in the middle of a leadership transition, and so a lot of what we're looking to do now will rest on the agenda of our new executive director, but the principles will remain the same. How do we make the next set of advancements in health and safety? What are the working conditions that we need to look to improve? What are the business opportunities that we haven't leveraged yet as it relates to player name, image, and likeness? How do we teach the next generation of NFL players what this business is about? How do we reach to college players who now have a bigger understanding of what NIL is than they've ever had before, right? So that's across not just for football, but all sports. Players and athletes are now recognizing their value at a very young age in a way that they never have before. So that learning curve, it's a positive thing that there's not that learning curve anymore with athletes. But now the focus for the union, in my opinion, over the next 3 to 5 years is capitalizing on that knowledge and turning that into leverage. Well, first of all, I'm thoroughly impressed with the vision and the leadership that Ahmad has brought to this organization. And I think the creativity that Ahmad and Eric Winston will bring to this place will hopefully inspire the athletes to rally around each other and work as a collective in what is an individual sport, right? And I think that creativity is going to be key in bringing out the change that you all want to bring, whether that's officially becoming a union or acting as an association on behalf of the membership to bring about the changes that you're looking for. Better rights in terms of the adjudication process on the issues that you first mentioned with relating to anti-doping. How do you all maximize revenue and really bring the value for the players that they may not have realized before? What does engaging with management look like? Who is management? I think you all are seeing that there's a challenge, and even identifying not just who's at the table, but how you go about sitting at the table with management. And I think that requires not just the vision and the leadership of people like Ahmad and Eric, but you need to have buy-in from players beyond just Novak and the players who have put their names on to be part of the player leadership group. I think there has to be a rallying cry among the athletes around a few basic fundamental rights of not just tennis players, but athletes in general. How do we have basic fairness as it relates to our review process and our appeals process? How do we as athletes, not just unique to tennis players, how do athletes in general ensure that they have a fair due process, not just for one unique set of disciplinary set of circumstances, but across everything that they might encounter during their career? So that's one rallying cry that I think you've already started to take up. Another issue that I know that Ahmad has shared with me and athletes have been talking about is, how come the tennis player calendar is the way it is?
52 weeks doesn't sound to you?
How come the tennis calendar is the way it is? And how come the Grand Slams aside, there are tournaments throughout the year that are actively impacting not just the health and safety of the players, but their performance as well, and their ability, especially for women athletes, for simple things like family planning. How do we get to a place where the athletes can not just identify what those issues are that are common to them, but really bring them together and start by raising awareness, because I think that's the first step in leverage, is creating awareness around it, but then galvanizing together and being a part of this organization to really bring about the right change. So in the NFL, we have what we identified a long time ago as the helmet problem, where a lot of fans want to engage with our athletes, but oftentimes they're unrecognizable because for the majority of their experience, the fans' experience with players, they're wearing a helmet. So our entire goal for several years, and with the Athlete AMP program, is to really humanize the athletes and to show not just a human side to the players, but also give them a platform to express their interests, to talk about things that they're passionate about off the field. And I think for tennis players, there's already a natural identification for who the athletes are, because it's such an individual sport and you can see the personalities play out between the lines. So I think that it's a little bit of an easier move for tennis players to be expressive and to be passionate about things that they're off the field. But again, having that common forum, the common agenda, and the common platform by which to do it, and I really think that's what the PTPA is focused on bringing to the tennis players. Look, again, there's a massive appetite and a massive interest in the sport. I mean, we're sitting here, it's a beautiful, unusually beautiful day in Washington, D.C. in August, where we have the opportunity to witness some of the best players in the world hundreds of feet away. And I think that creativity around not just social media, but a human interaction. And I think we do a lot of things as NFL players around community engagement, for example, where NFL players have football camps during the off season. So is there a creative way where, again, tying it back to the agenda item of athletes in tennis being overworked through the year, is there an off season where they can really create a fan engagement experience, a community engagement experience, where it's the athletes coming to a tennis court and just engaging with young people in the community who might be fans of the sport? And that is something that the athletes in football and basketball have taken it upon themselves to do. And I'd love to see tennis players do more of that if we can create a window for them to do that. Well, look, again, to make it very local and very personal, Francis is a local kid. And this is his local tournament. And unfortunately, because of the calendar and the way that the tour places unreasonable demands on the athletes, he hasn't been able, for example, to do a tennis clinic with young people in Northwest DC or Northeast DC or engage with fans in this community, right? So I think going back to a common agenda and the advocacy role that the PTPA can play, it's really about advocating in a collective way with those individual engagements and opportunities in mind. So the how is going to be up to the uniqueness of the sport and the way that the athletes get together, and Novak's leadership and Ahmad's leadership and the other athletes who have taken it upon themselves to be part of this executive committee. But identifying where the problems are, I think, is a very good first start, and raising awareness about it and getting the athletes to talk about it. I mean, just even doing this type of thing, I think, is really important to get that message out on social media so that fans understand that, hey, look, if we had a lighter schedule, we could have probably gotten to meet Francis here locally. And that's a big deal. Again, I think the magic of tennis is really the ability. I mean, look, I'm an immigrant kid, and I was able to pick up a tennis racket, cheap one, mind you, and tennis balls and go hit against the wall in my schoolyard in Queens, New York. And I think that's the beauty and the accessibility of the sport, but we're not seeing that in the way that the ATP and the other management side schedules things. And I think we really need to get back to this, what is the Frances Tiafoe story like? Why did the Williams sister story capture the imagination of not just America, but the world? It was that accessibility of the sport. And I think we need to get back to that. And I have no doubt that the athletes on this executive committee and the leadership of this organization will do that. It goes back to player rights, the fundamental rights of athletes to, number one, have the freedom to do what they want in their own time. And then number two, have a fair due process if they are alleged to have violated the rules. And those are the two basic principles that we stand on, whether it comes to gambling, personal conduct policy, any other violation on or off the field in the NFL. And I think looking at it through the lens of player rights is the only way I know how to look at this, because it cuts across all of the issues. Of course, there are common sense rules in place to prevent athletes from betting on the sports that they play in. We all get that. We all agree to that. What we're talking about, though, is not over-legislating to infringe on the rights of athletes in a way that is unfair and unreasonable. And that's really what we're talking about.